Good afternoon. Today is Monday, March 11th, 2024. We're here for the regular trustee meeting. If you can join me, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have an agenda before us. Are there any changes or modifications?
I have none.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Krebs?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $355,924.49 for the 3/6/2024 payroll.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Krebs?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the payment listing reports in the amount of $881,042.08 for warrants through March 7th, 2024.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Krebs?
Yes. This time we have minutes before us from February 26, 2024 regular trustee meeting. Are there any changes, additions? If not, we have a motion to approve as presented.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular trustee meeting for February 26, 2024 as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Krebs?
Question, Mr. Rushing, this did not include the zoning hearing minutes. That meeting was not that day, or this was?
Correct, that was the meeting
Previous.
prior,
Okay.
so that was included in the packet prior.
Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. At this time, we open the floor up to any citizens desiring to speak. Seeing none, we move on. We have no old business. And so our new business, Mr. Rushing.
Yes, Board, first under new business, we do have a presentation on the final plan for the Greene County countywide 911 system. And to present that to us as our division chief and county 911 coordinator, Nathan Heister.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
The final plan is before you, and a draft resolution to approve that if you so choose. We worked to get that plan completed and through the 911 Review Committee in a timely fashion, and we're able to say that we've done so that's key. Happy to answer any questions you may have about that plan.
Chief Easter, if you can just kind of reference for the other members of the board as far as that this plan is more of a structural organizational plan and does not include how the different players or participants in the plan fund the plan at this point. I mean, the overarching funding model is established by the state, but Beavercreek Township's contribution towards that is not yet defined.
Correct.
So if you could, we talked about this at our committee meeting, and that's kind of a next step or two steps down the road type process.
Correct. So this plan is required by Ohio Revised Code Section 128. It basically is intended to capture the costs that are projected by each dispatch center along with their overall operating cost to be inputted and considered in the state distribution of the new 911 funds. So the existing 911 funds will be distributed as they have been, but the next gen 911 funds haven't been completely calculated as to how they will be dispersed. And so the information contained in this plan gives them kind of a framework to know where the needs are within the state, and so we're required to submit this. It also addresses the compliance issues that are required in that same section of code for each PSEP, or Public Safety Answering Point. So they're wanting to basically ensure that not only are we getting funds, but that we're applying them to where they need to go, as well as meeting the compliance requirements in that ORC section within the centers within the 2-year window that's required. So the plan speaks to a lot of those requirements, as well as policies and procedures in place, and then any additional requirements that the 911 Review Committee for each county would place on those centers Currently, our 911 Review Commission does not require any additional, or has not placed any additional requirements on the disbursement, for the disbursement of funding when that funds become available, but they can certainly amend that plan in the future.
And then as far as maybe if you can add some commentary relative to misdirected calls and how those will be referenced or accommodated. In the
Sure. So one of the things that have been peeling back since November is how the policies and procedures are in place for misdirected 911 calls within Greene County. Unfortunately, there hasn't been much in place in the past, and they've just kind of been handled locally by each center, and to some extent just addressed in a small vacuum. And so we've rectified that by putting in some procedures in place for how those mishandled or misdirected calls are handled, a hierarchy that they'll go through, more than just handling it within that brief moment. So the call takers and dispatchers do a great job at handling them and getting them to the right center as quickly as possible, but then there's not been any follow-up in the past on how do we deal with those. And so today we actually had a meeting on some of those misdirected calls in relation to Greene Central and some addresses within the county. Had quite a few folks there, including Steve Thompson, the GIS director for Greene County, as well as Tricia Ballinier from Greene Central Communications, and we were able to work through some specific issues and prevent them from happening again. So that follow-up piece of that feedback loop is now in place, so that we can address those issues in a more permanent fashion, so they don't recur.
But the general issue isn't that it's not necessarily human error that it was dispatched to the wrong, sent to the wrong center. It's that the new development comes online or a lot is split and that new address doesn't make its way to the CAD system there's no direct link to the auditor site or the recorder site. Is that correct?
So it makes its way to our CAD system by virtue of the partnerships that we have within Greene County with the auditor's office. They maintain our CAD GIS database. The issue is generally more when the phone calls get routed. So a new address and a new street that gets created for a new development, if that's not sent to the phone company, then they don't know what to do with that street. And when it's close to a county border, that creates confusion as to which center that call should go to, or within a center border. So we have Fairborn, which receives calls for the city of Fairborn, city of Beavercreek, which receives 911 calls for the city of Beavercreek. All of the other 911 calls in Greene County, with a couple of small exceptions, go to Xenia Greene Central Communications for processing, and then they get transferred should services be required to be dispatched to another center. And so when you create new streets near any one of those borders, it can create confusion on where those landline 911 calls are routed to. But about 77% of total call volume in 2023 for Greene County was wireless calls. And so we have no real way to parse those out, so it tends to mask some of those issues because not many folks use landline for phone calls anymore, at least in new developments as we're seeing. So the next gen 911 system is designed to help with that because it uses your actual position based on those wireless devices and sends that into the 911 system and then plots that against the map. So we're already ahead of the game with the partnership we have with Greene County GIS, helping us to manage where those boundaries are. And we are partnering with NINA and the federal 911 group to be able to upload that information directly into their system for the next gen 911.
So all of this board, just to reemphasize the reason why we, as a committee, we open the meeting, we allow Chief Heister to talk, to tell us what we should do, what we should avoid, and then we vote to approve what he recommends, and then we close the meeting.
I just wanted to comment that at the last MVRPC meeting, both the Greene County Commissioner and Sugar Creek Township again came up to me and told me there how the confidence they had in you on leading this team. So I do want to compliment you again on your expertise and willingness to work with everybody so well.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 202-40311-admin as presented.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda for new business, we do have an amendment to our board and commission policy. This is an existing policy that was first adopted in 2016, And board, as from time to time, we need to revisit and amend board and policy procedures. This is one of them. This policy in particular addresses what the Board of Township Trustees is allowable in regards to different rules and regulations from what we experience with our zoning commission and Board of Zoning Appeals. And this right here, these amendments, you see red line for any amendments that I've made, and pink line, so to speak, for any amendments that our legal counsel, Mrs. Frick, has made. Primarily, the differences within this amended policy is you will see how we treat alternate members of Zoning Commission and alternate members of Board of Zoning Appeals. One of the items that has become apparent lately is a little bit of inconsistency in how our public hearings are faced. Board, as you are fully aware, land use development is a paramount issue within the state of Ohio. There are hallway conversations that even the state legislature is having about the need to further develop land for residential housing in terms of trying to bring economic development to the state. You know of Intel as well as Honda. Those are just prime examples of what the state of Ohio is attempting to bring more frequently to the state of Ohio. In relation to that, there are hallway conversations within the state legislature that even want to go as far as to get rid of local zoning powers within townships. So to help avoid that, we need to be consistent. We need to make sure that we have public hearings that retain decorum and that we utilize all tools in the toolbox, so to speak, within the Ohio Revised Code. And this policy updates that to ensure that none of these sections in the Ohio Revised Code, in terms of what the township trustees are unable to enact to the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Zoning Commission, are left in the toolbox, so to speak, that we are being consistent and ensuring that both sides, both the boards and the applicant and members of the public, have due process in carrying out these public hearings. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. And the back and forth with our red line, there was a couple items that I failed to incorporate. So I believe Mrs. Frick has some recommendations that she'll bring to you, and be my recommendation that we accept the recommendations of Mrs. Frick and we adopt the policy as amended. Ms. Frick?
Yeah, if you want to scroll down, I'll show you what it's not overly complicated.
Section.
Under section 3, currently, under the BZA, go down a little bit further. Okay. We, under the BZA, we have reference to state law claims and federal law claims, as well as the applicability of Ohio ethics laws to the BZA. That actually applies to both the BZA and the Zoning Commission. So my recommendation was to just make a new section 4, call it legal matters, and then the current section 4 would become 5, and then so on and so forth. So that state law claims, federal law claims, and the applicability of Ohio ethics laws, that would all be in reference to both boards. So it's really not a complicated change. I just want to make sure. And so I would have to tweak the language where it says BZA members are afforded. It would be BZA and Zoning Commission members.
Is, just in reading through this, does it, we're talking about essentially under, I guess it's, we're going to call it 3.6 and 3.7, and then all the sub-paragraphs to that. So with all the references to the revised code, is this section, however you format it or reformat it into a section 4, will it remain evergreen from a standpoint of, will you still have to go back and update this should any of these reference codes be changed, or?
Well, right now it's only referring to the chapters in which they're contained in, so.
As long as they're amended, then it's amended. Essentially, it stays.
Correct.
It doesn't sunset with that chapter. So
Yes.
it's only if they add a new chapter, but if they add a new subsection within the chapter, it stays.
Correct.
Okay. All right. any questions from anybody as far as the structure of some of the changes relative to an absence of a regular member, and what happens in the event of that absence?
I don't have any questions, but I would probably recommend that once this is approved, that we have a work session for the BZA and Planning Commission to go over this document. Can we have, would it be okay asking our attorney that they, each member sign off on they received the document? Like we have documents that we have our personnel sign off that they received? Would that be an appropriate action?
Yeah, I think, in fact, when we originally adopted it back in 2016, we did that. So I think we would just take that same form and note the amendment to it and have everybody sign off on it.
So that in a work session that they can,
Right.
you would be there and they could ask questions if they wanted
Yes.
to. So I would recommend that we do that. So just a work
Absolutely.
session to go over this document, be real quick and easy, and then they sign off that they received it. Everybody's on the same page and they can ask questions at that time so that they don't feel like they get the document and then they have to have a zoning meeting or a planning commission meeting and it's all in one session. I would rather have it just a separate, quick session, if need be.
We can do that.
I mean, we could do a joint work session with both together, even.
Yeah,
That would probably be
be the best way.
expedient.
It's still a public meeting, but,
Yes.
and then you may fall into it. You have to be cognizant that you may fall into a trap of people not wanting to sign it because they feel that that implies they agree with it. And so, like, there's other methods you can use essentially through SharePoint or other things where you can at least acknowledge receipt, which is what your main, it's not acknowledging agreement.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns, comments? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 2024-0311-admin-F. Motion to adopt the Board of Commissions policies as
Amended.
As amended.
As
as
amended.
amended. I'm sorry, yes.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. We now move on to our monthly reports. First is the Sheriff's Substation, and Sergeant Kessel is here. Present the monthly report as well as a moment of excellence for one of our own and the efforts that our Deputy Sloan's doing.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Made sure to take the opportunity to introduce Deputy Sloan to all of you. You read the excellent work he's doing in the packet. If I may, I'd like to read it in. Deputy Sloan transferred from a patrol assignment downtown to the township the second week of February this year. Deputy Sloan has taken part in advanced drug and addiction training. He's made an immediate impact upon his assignment as highlighted by internal documents attached to the report. A summary of the recent activity is listed below. While on patrol on February 14, 2024, Deputy Sloan received notification from the our flock camera at 35 and Factory, that a stolen semi-trailer out of New Jersey was in the area. Deputy Sloan located the trailer, which resulted in the recovery of the stolen trailer and heroin that was located in the cab. And then not only, but 6 days later, Deputy Sloan stopped another vehicle for an equipment violation on 35 near the split. Deputy Sloan had reason to believe that drugs were present, so he requested Deputy Kraft and our K-9 unit, Maverick. K-9 Maverick alerted on the vehicle. Narcotics were present during a free air sniff. Subsequently, a large amount of suspected methamphetamine was located. Of course, there's pictures there to show there are plenty of them. I grabbed a few for you. Then on February 25th, Deputy Sloan stopped a vehicle on 35 just east of Orchard Lane for another equipment violation. Deputy Sloan, his investigation led to the seizure of more suspected methamphetamine and drug paraphernalia as pictured there. And then just 3 days later, he's after it again. He stopped a vehicle for an equipment violation on 35 near the split. Again, Deputy Sloan had reason to believe the drugs were present. He requested Deputy Kraft and K-9 Maverick. Maverick alerted on the vehicle during the free air sniff. Subsequently, a very large amount of suspected methamphetamine was located. As you can see there, 228.5 grams. That's quite a bit. Deputy Sloan is eager and he is passionate about his position as a deputy sheriff. He's a welcome member of the team. He gets out there every night, so we're kind of switching gears a little bit, and we're just focusing more on just some of the stuff that's going on the highways, so.
That's great.
Yeah, so he's here to answer any questions you may have. He does, like I said, have advanced training that the sheriff's office sent him to, looking for those indicators, those criminal indicators, and he's applying it. He's just doing really good work for us. And if you want to step up here, he was supposed to be just a fill-in, but I think he's wanting to stay, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna be staying for a while. So, yeah, like I said, I've been to OSP for their dragging interdiction courses. I plan on going to more of their interdiction courses and climb 135. I want to get more seizures like that to definitely protect our communities from the benefits of, the negative effects of these drugs. Most of these drugs are moving down south to like Sauter County, Pike County, Highland County. And one of their things that they're doing is they're stopping at the Circle K, gassing up because that's your last stop before you reach these southern counties. With that being said, you put a marked patrol car across the street, they're going to look at you. They're going to be very, very nervous, which is those criminal indicators, that RAS, that reasonable articulable suspicion. Why are they looking at me so much? Why are they nervous? Why are they checking their car? Why are they just walking back and forth into the gas station? Or they'll move their car out of a parking space and pull it right back in. Just very nervous behavior. With that being said, get probable cause, get a dog on scene, do a free air sniff. With that being said, going to OSP, going to street cop trainings, teach me how to search vehicles, also search people properly. That method was concealed on a female. With that being said, I had a Xenia officer come in and pat her down. She admitted to the drugs, everything like that, after the fact. So with that being said, I'm going to do my absolute best to keep these kind of drugs off the street.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I will say, I spoke with Captain Ng last week. We discussed some dates for some interdiction. And we're looking at mid-April. We're working on details. I'll get with Mr. Rushing, and he actually complimented his reports and his work. And I've also looked, he's doing things by the book, doing things the right way. So we're glad to have him. He's a good team out there with
That's great.
Maverick. So
Stay safe.
another update. Also, I did ask Captain Ng about the surveillance equipment that he requested, that the board approved, and he said it's been deployed twice in the township. Right now, it's at an undisclosed area in Beavercreek there's a theft ring that they're able to monitor, so it's been highly beneficial, and he does plan on coming in to give a report at some
Great.
point, but I wanted to pass that along.
Thank you.
Sure. Do you have any questions on the report?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is HR. Mrs. Sink is here to answer any questions about her report.
Any questions for me?
I don't have any questions, but I like your report. It's
Oh, thank you.
nice and good visual.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Just different. Everybody has their own methodology, and just nice to see a different view in the packet.
I wanted it to be easy to read and
concise.
different. Thanks.
That helps.
I've been busy, as you can see.
It looks like it. Okay,
Nothing
thank
too
you.
exciting or too new. I'm finally sort of getting into the swing of things and know when I come in each day mostly what's going to be facing me, so that's great.
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
Thank
I have
you.
a question for you. What software are we using now as far as, from an HR management software, as far as tracking reviews and all of that cycle? So performance and merit-based and all those types of things. So I know we had a software package we had at one time, and then that kind of fell by the wayside.
That phased out.
Correct.
So what are we looking at, or what are we?
Well,
doing to
I
track
have
that?
several on my list to look at. Actually, Terry Molden and I will be meeting with someone from VIP this week, which is our finance
Right.
payroll software, because they do have an HR module.
I was gonna say, most payroll modules have an HR piece to it, or an element that you can combine, and they're fully integrated, which makes it a lot easier than if you were to take a third party and try to integrate it to, especially like a VIP, I assume that has something, so.
And I have Chief Heaster and I have looked at a couple of Well, we looked at Image Trend, which is something the firehouse is using now, to see if that might work, if we can figure out a way to use something we've already got. OSL right now is where most of the documents are housed. The hope is to move away from that. I've been putting documents out on SharePoint for the new hires that are upcoming. And it would be great to find a system that would house all those forms, and we could give new hires logins to get in there and just do them right in the platform. But as of now, SharePoint is where it's at.
Did the county use VIP for HR management, or they use something third party? Okay.
And I think the software we used previously was Bamboo.
Right.
And I have been doing a lot of their just hour-long, quick podcasts, basically, webinars. And I really like their perspective on HR. And I'm probably going to get a demo to take a look at that again, because as I understand it, we didn't really use it to its full capabilities when we had it.
Yeah, my understanding is more as warehousing, not so much as the whole onboarding and management piece of it.
Right.
The onboarding packet piece is important for uniformity and consistency, obviously, and then if you can take that to where it's helping to manage and make sure that no employee's left behind type thing.
Right.
As far as a review and a good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is. So
Right.
performance versus compensation.
So I do have a list of several things. Actually, the chief and I also met with a Microsoft person about, what was the name of that?
Dynamic 365, I
As I
believe.
say, it's part of Office 365.
And yeah,
Or
it's
it ties
an
into it, I
enterprise
should say.
extension to
Yeah.
it.
Correct.
And they were supposed to reach out to us. I don't think they have they?
We got one, but it wasn't really applicable. We haven't gotten any others.
Okay.
So,
Okay, it was just a curiosity.
Anyway, I've just pretty much have feelers out at the moment and a list of potentials, but nothing concrete yet.
Okay.
Definitely on our list of goals for HR this year, so
Okay,
thanks.
thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next is Community Development at Risk, Mr. Grogan.
Evening, Board. I have one item on the agenda. We'd like to accept a donation from the firefighters company, Federal Credit Union, for 50 carbon monoxide detectors to distribute to the citizens of Beavercreek. The credit union has donated over 800 this year to 5 area departments. We were selected as one of them, and this is kind of the 9th year in a row that they have done this donation process. We're creating a program along with some donations that we're seeking from the American Red Cross in regards to smoke detectors. So I have a sample motion on there for
Are these plug-in or are these hardwired?
plugins.
And then who installs them? Do we?
That's what we're going to be working on with the policy aspect here.
And how would our citizens be able to obtain them?
We're working on that also with the policy. Generally, it's going to be available for the crews to have if need be, and then contact via website. I think that's the avenue we're looking at to show that they're available.
You say they've done this a number of years in a row. How have we distributed them in the past?
The same thing through
process. Okay.
with crew participation.
Good, yeah,
when
that's a
it's
good idea.
available.
Is there
They obviously see a need out of the public.
Is there a monetary value to those that you would, what would you assume they are per unit?
I did have a calculation I did not put on here because I don't know the specific detectors, but they're $25 a piece, equaling about $1,200 or so.
Okay.
But that's just a general, I didn't know exactly
It was
what.
more a question of Mr. Rushing, if they need a letter or anything acknowledging the donation, or if we need as the township to acknowledge that with a monetary value or in kind or.
Well, we probably should accept it through resolution, which then, I think within those in the past, we've indicated what that monetary value generally is.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I'll find out what brand it is, so.
So do we want to do that through a motion then, or wait until we have a resolution to accept it?
Do we have time to the next meeting, Mr. Grogan?
Yeah, we
Just
can
make
do
sure
it.
we do it right.
Yeah, we can do that.
Sure. I think we just wanted to present it absolutely, if we want to go to
No,
it, that makes sense.
yeah, I think as a
Sure.
township, everyone appreciates that. Not just the
Values under
monetary
a
piece
certain
of it, but
amount.
the cognizant piece that not everyone
Do
is
we
aware
have
that
to?
they should have one or have the resources to get one.
I thought there was a dollar threshold.
They vary so much in price that I don't think I necessarily,
Yeah,
no number to
That was
put
like
it on.
25.
well, that's where I was
500 or
curious
something.
as far as the installation and the training and that type thing, so it doesn't just get sit on a shelf.
Okay.
Sure.
Right.
And then have a problem later.
Okay, I'll bring back resolution next meeting. The only other item I didn't have on there, but is pertaining to the monthly report, Mr. Graham and I have been emailing back and forth in regards to the updated spreadsheet that he provides for us for the updated revenue projection numbers. And we finally got that sorted out. Unfortunately, it was after the time I had the monthly report together. So next month, we'll have all those updated numbers. So any other questions on the monthly report, folks?
No, on the community development side of the house, something that I'd like to at least plant a seed for and see as a possible consideration for a text amendment in the near future is relative to the plan. So when we have new developments come online or new sections of a we'll call a master planned community or something of that nature, where in the specific site plan approval process, where to consider as an additional condition in the future is to restrict or really restrict the planting of trees in the right of way. And so I took a lot of calls, as others did, in the house, as far as the trimming activities that occurred in certain neighborhoods, and it really occurs anywhere in the township, not just in those certain neighborhoods, but to the extent that my response was that I personally just don't feel that there should be trees in the right of way, period. They cause problems when they overhang the road, and so when they're required, they cause problems for the buses, for the snowplows, for the fire trucks, and for Amazon trucks. They cause problems for a lot of folks, and I don't believe that it's. I'm firm on this. That I don't believe it's the residents of, we'll call it south of 35, should bear the burden to trim the trees on the north side of 35. I don't think that's their responsibility. I think it's the homeowners or the HOA's responsibilities, and so one way to avoid that problem is not to keep repeating sins of the past. By simply say that as a township, we don't want trees planted between sidewalks and curbs because it creates a problem, and then that drives emotional responses later. But the same could be said of the same tree overhanging the sidewalk, and one child has to divert and go into the street with their bike and gets hit by a car. Who gets sued? Everybody. So I think it'd be best just to not repeat the problem, at least for future new neighborhoods that are going through the approval process. That's my opinion. So,
I agree with that.
but it causes too many problems down the road that are avoidable by simply saying, don't plant a tree where you know it's gonna cause a problem. It's gonna bust the sidewalk, bust the curb, get hit by a school bus, I don't think our road department should be arborists, so it's not their responsibility. So.
With the recent trimming, Mr. Schroeder and I have been discussing the issue about the zoning. We actually checked into the subdivision regulations for the county, seeing if they did have something. They have not, so absolutely.
Yeah, I'll be bringing it up at regional planning as well, because I think it's just why perpetuate the problem. So you can't change what's already there, but you can stop.
Yeah, we can stop.
You don't have to make more of it.
And, well, and to add that, I've mentioned it before, and now that we're looking at maybe more housing going up, and I want to keep encouraging having garages put electric EV things for cars. New homes, if they put that in when they build a house, especially with the cost of new housing going up, to put that EV plug in a garage already prior to, as the walls are going in, I think that would be a big encouragement to the builders.
Sure. To give you an update on that, I've contacted Greene County Building Regulations. We don't typically, on our side, deal a lot with residential, in the residential side, but I'm getting some updates from the electrical code side of that, from the residential, to see if that's actually a requirement nowadays. So I haven't gotten any response response back from them yet, but yeah.
HBA would probably push back on that only because of the cost per square foot to build a new home now, and they can't build affordable, we'll call it housing, workforce housing. I understand the logic behind it.
Well, the homes that they're building now are not affordable anyway. They're not workforce homes.
Extra cost when, if somebody wanted that in their home, they can just add it.
But it's hard to add. I mean, at least I want to have it on the,
So, yeah, should have discussion.
at least if the builders are aware that they could put it on the list of options so that people start thinking about it before the walls go in than after the fact. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, certain neighborhoods.
MVRPC is really pushing that as far as the EVs. And I think it's important to keep that knowledge going through, however we communicate it.
I know some new neighborhoods now, and it just depends price point wise, but I think others are doing it because of the countywide fiber project. So some neighborhoods are pre-wiring for fiber. So that's standard, but they're not putting copper wires in the homes anymore for landlines. It's
Right.
county in person. So, but they're not, the builder's not doing it. They make a deal with AT&T or with whoever, Alta Fiber, and they say, you pre-wire my neighborhood at your expense and pre-wire my homes at your expense, and therefore you have a higher capture rate.
I think the electric code, if anything, is recognizing that that's a larger draw on the supply of residential homes, so preparing for that, however that might be in relation to.
Okay,
Thank you.
We're following up on
thank you.
it. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next is Information Technology. In front of you is their monthly report. Are there any questions?
Had none.
I had none.
Thank you, Board. Next is our Finance Department. Mrs. Molden is here. Answer any questions about her report.
Been very busy, as usual.
I had no questions.
I had no questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next is our Public Service Department. We do have several action items. First is acceptance of speed studies, and Mr. John Schroeder is here to present those.
Good evening, Board. Well, a few items for your consideration. First one is we've got the two speed studies, which have been talked about for quite some time. The first one we have here is for Orchard Lane, North Orchard, 35 to Dayton Xenia. They're recommending to take it from the unposted 55 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour. We need to pass this by resolution, so at the very end of this, of all the reports, is the resolution for this. Pretty standard. Do you guys have any questions for me from that one?
And this is south of 35, correct?
This
Or
is
all-
north of
or
35. This is
North.
Dayton Xenia to
just that
35.
section, so that's actually a 55 mile an hour unposted.
Correct,
Okay.
which
It's
is,
a heck of a curve. Okay, I never knew that, never realized that, I guess. The south side of it, so even though south is included in your illustration, what is the posted speed limit on the south side?
so the south side is under some review. It's from the state perspective, it's supposed to be 25 miles per hour. However, it's never been journalized, so it does not technically qualify for 25 miles per hour. So it's actually 55 miles per hour,
What is yellow brick?
35.
35, okay.
But it's been journalized, so we are having a conversation now with Ms. Goff on what we need to do to get the south side. I mean, right now, if you go down there, you can do 55 miles per hour, which is crazy in that short amount of time, but, so we're working with Ms. Goff to see what we need to do to get that to, that 25 to be in play and enforceable. Right now, it's 55, but we're working through it.
You can get almost across the river at 55.
Yeah, with the right angle,
You can fly.
85 miles an hour, you can go back in time.
Almost, someone's right.
so yeah, again, like I said, there's a resolution at the end of this report for the north section of Orchard Lane.
Well, any other questions? Then I'll move to approve resolution number 202-40311-PSD as presented.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The second speed study we had was for Valley Road. Now, there were some changes on this road. The state is recommending from Upper Bell to Dumford, which is the airport, that be changed from 55 miles an hour to 50. And then from Dumford to 35, from 55 to 45.
Okay, where is that? What page are we trying to get to?
Depends, are you looking for, which part are you looking for? You in the reports or?
I'm looking for a map of that section. There it is.
Page 145 has kind of the zones. This was broken up into zones between county and township.
And so why are they reducing with the new overpass coming?
Yeah.
Why would they lower that?
I
Because
believe,
on the north side of, tree line side is what speed limit there?
the north side of that is, I believe 55. I have to go through and,
Slow down before you go up and then speed up when you're coming down the ramp.
I think part of the reason for the upper end of Valley being changed is it's 55, and with those two S curves up there, we've had a ton of accidents in those guardrails. And I think the lower end is just because of the on-ramp. You're now getting on that ramp to go up to the overpass, and partly you have two businesses through there. You have the cemetery, and then you have, can't think of the name of the business off the top of my head. Yeah.
County disability.
Yeah,
Right
that you have that business there, and then you have a couple driveways in those curves that go up by the cemetery too. So I think that's part of the other reason why they're changing it to 45.
And from a sheriff's perspective, as far as enforcing, that's a pretty significant drop in a short zone. Is that a speed trap or is that a?
Well, what we do typically, when we have a speed change like this, we implement a warning period, so that we pull people over. Hey, I understand it was, this is what it is now, just to be fair, maybe a month and a half, and then I'll give you order, just go ahead and start citing after.
Do you put the
that
trailer
grace
out?
period.
Would you put the trailer out for that period as a break-in period, just to say,
Yeah.
FYI, the speed limit is this? Because so is the speed limit? It changes right as you come through the tunnel.
Right at Dumford is what they have marked on here. As you're coming out of that tunnel, it would change.
It
So
would
you
make
got,
more sense to change it before you come into the tunnel.
it would, and that would be something we could speak with Ms. Goff in the state and see if we're allowed any leeway
As
to
you're coming through the tunnel, and then you may not
be right on it.
I'm just, versus if you're trying to slow it down on its approach to 35, it may be better to have that reduced right before the tunnel.
Right.
Because then you would also slow people down before they enter the tunnel,
Correct.
allegedly. So,
It's kind of twofold too, going up, that's the only thing I would see would be different is, because then you're gonna be changing from 45 to 50. Granted, you're going up in speed, but, again, you're kind of running the same thing before the tunnel, you're coming right out of the tunnel, but,
yeah, out of curiosity, if you slowed it down on the, I don't know if you call that southbound going towards the tunnel from 35, if you put that 40 on that side of the tunnel and put the speed limit change on the other side of the tunnel for the speed for the traffic approaching 35. So you have it on both sides, so you're slowing down as you enter the tunnel.
right.
Can you do that, or is that?
I'm not 100% certain on that, to be honest.
Yeah, don't know.
But it would work.
Right.
It would slow you down.
It would,
It would
yes.
slow you down before you enter the tunnel going both ways.
Right. Well, right. So, but as you're going southbound up, you get the increase from the tunnel out because that's changing. That's going from 45 to 50.
Correct. Yeah, so maybe it wouldn't be bad to have them go to get through the tunnel to accelerate.
Right. So that's the only thing I'm thinking. To your point of
Put
if
them
we
both
put
sides, on the same side of the tunnel.
right. So I'll speak with Ms. Goff and see if we have any ability, a little bit of
That's
leeway
just-
in there.
Just a practical comment of if I come through the tunnel, I may not even notice that sign.
Right.
Well,
No,
because
you're
you
100%.
gotta-
I agree with you.
You get a sight difference too, if it's darker and then you come out and it's bright sunlight, sometimes you don't, your eyes are adjusting to the
That's what I
sunlight
would
or,
blame if I got pulled over.
and then,
No, I agree with you. I understand exactly what you're saying. I just need to convey that and see what room we have to move.
What little
and see
leeway
what we
she'll
can
give
do,
us.
see if we have any leeway. Maybe we do it a little bit down the hill prior to the tunnel for both of them.
When is the ramp opening, allegedly?
The ramp should be completed this spring.
So April, May, so.
Yeah, it's very close.
If
They
you
were
time
supposed-
it to that change in pattern, and then put the trailer out there to say, hey, you're going this, and it should be this, that alleviates least create awareness for the people that take it as if they follow that breadcrumb route every day to work,
Right.
they would notice it.
Okay.
And Board, this is one of the agenda items that Clout always brings up year after year. You know, our ability to have local control of our roads is limited. The county engineer with ODOT has a lot of input. More flexibility will always be encouraged by, especially townships of our size that, know these roads and understand the traffic patterns. So as you go to Clout meetings, township association meetings, these topics come up. Here are examples where maybe, just maybe, others far away don't know exactly what's going on the ground.
And the only thing else I'll bring up, so I think this is good, is I'd be remiss, there's a lady named Gail Birchfield, who everyone may or may not know, but she calls the county engineer monthly and asks for a speed study to be, or a turn lane study to be, or a turn lane study to be performed on Trayvine at the Turfland on the east side of Trayvine as it goes into Liberty Hill. That there's no turn lanes there, or deceleration lane, essentially.
Okay.
So, she has called me multiple times. She has called the engineer's office probably monthly for 2 or 3 years now, and zero effect at the end of the day. I believe there is right-of-way there. She was told last that they didn't want to do it before they did the repaving of Trayvine, and then they repaved Trayvine.
That's been a little bit.
Yeah, and so, but similar issue up there as far as the speed of traffic and no deceleration lane, and people who run across the road to get to the pool don't take the time. So,
Yeah, I can definitely pass that on and see if there's
it's just
something
something,
on that.
you're on the same road at least, just
Right.
further north.
Okay.
Okay. So you need a resolution.
Yes, there was one at the end of that report, which was quite lengthy.
What page is that resolution?
That's on page 238.
Make a motion to approve resolution number 2024-0311-PSD-B, a resolution passed as presented.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
The third item I have is a salt purchase. So we did a salt purchase in, I believe it was January. The city has come to us. They are tearing down their current salt building on 9 acres. They have to empty that facility. So they offered us to buy the salt, and the price in here is $54.19 a ton. We currently pay $94.71 a ton through our contract. So this is obviously quite the savings for the township, and it's helping a neighbor out for them to get their new salt building built. So we are looking to purchase 300 tons of salt from them. We'll obviously just transport it, since we're just not even a mile away from each other. We'll just transport it down the street to our building.
I was gonna ask, what's the transportation budget
Yeah.
to haul it, because.
Yeah, just for us, it's just gonna be just our manpower. It shouldn't take us, and I think the city, in speaking with them, they're gonna offer some trucks as well. So we should be able to get it done fairly
Are
quickly.
they loading it on the trucks, or?
Correct, they're loaded with their loader. They know how much, and we both have the same loader, so we both have a good idea of what a loader bucket holds. But again, and it's almost a saving. It's right around 12,000, maybe just a touch north of $12,000 in savings.
Okay. I move to approve purchase request VIP requisition number 24-PSD-0058 to City of Beavercreek for 300 tons of road salt in the amount of $20,000, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Board, last thing I have is just the monthly report for the Public Service Department.
I had no questions on that, but I would like to say that I've noticed your groundskeepers doing mulch around the buildings. Around this building looks great, and I just saw you guys working on Station 64 earlier today, and it looks really nice, and want to compliment your staff for doing such a nice job.
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying to take advantage of the weather in the early before it gets very warm, and we can start we've got a lot of concrete work to do this year, so trying to take advantage and get this done early so that it looks nice and it's good to go
does.
for the spring. I will say tree trimming is done. We did complete that, so hopefully
Should be good for a while.
it should be good for a while, correct. We did have a meeting with Ms. Nutter, Mr. Rushing, so we did have a discussion about future ways to go that we're gonna kind of operate to help both parties. So that's something that came out of that, which was nice.
Because I think the root problem is just restrict it on future developments, and you can achieve a similar result by planting it inside of the sidewalk.
And I agree completely, and that was something that I brought up, with Mr. Rushing and Mr. Grogan, and the thing I tried to explain to the residents as I met with them, was the sidewalk issue, was the curb issue. I also tried to bring up the stormwater issue. If it gets into the catch basins, root structure, I tried to advise, I'm like, we're gonna have to cut the root structure out, which is actually almost worse on a tree than cutting the limbs. So I tried to take them through that. Obviously, some people heard it, some people didn't. It didn't matter. But trying to explain to the same thing, and the federal level of 13 feet 6 inches is the Department of Transportation's natural height through bridges and so on and so forth. So I tried to relay that with them. But out of all this, the conversation we had with Ms. Nutter was very good, and so hopefully we have a path forward for in future years if we have to go back and do it again.
Yeah, that individual issue can be resolved just through an HOA taking care of it and assessing it to their homeowners. So in a discrete way through their normal HOA fees. So
And I agree.
That can be handled because there's, like I said, the overhang on the sidewalk is just as big or bigger of an issue as far as potential liability.
Correct. Any other questions or anything?
I don't like to wear a hat when I walk.
Anything else?
Thank you.
No,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next is our Fire Department, and Chief Vandenboss is here to present his monthly report and several action items.
Good evening, Board. And actually, this is my first day back after 2 weeks away, so I am actually going to request a lot of assistance from staff. They actually were the ones that were putting together the packet for me and have the most information. So first of all, I want to thank Chief Easter, Chief Hawker, Chief Dorson for their input in getting these together and then also supporting them. And with that, I'm going to ask Chief Easter to go over the recognition of excellence and show some of the good work our folks have been doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Board, we wanted to recognize Lieutenant Nathan Art. He actually just completed a nationally recognized class that was required of his position as the Assistant Regional Coordinator for the Dayton Regional Hazmat Team. So that actually puts him on a plane with very few folks in the Dayton area that are completed the course for Hazardous Materials Incident Command and Safety Officer class. So he continues to bring training to Beavercreek Township in that role. So we've actually most recently had our last year's hazardous materials training at the GE Aviation building, and continue to work with some other partners in the Beavercreek area. When he puts on those classes for us, he does extend an invitation through the Dayton Regional Hazmat Team to other departments who do come and join us. We've had some folks from Trotwood, Dayton, Kettering, and others join us as well for those trainings. So the other one to recognize, firefighter Rob Shaw, during the tornadoes that happened on February 28th, actually before he came to work and started his shift, when he went to go check on his neighbors before leaving to come to work, found one of his neighbors' homes that was, and there's a photo just down a little bit there, that was completely destroyed by the tornado, and his neighbors were actually trapped inside that home, and he was actually able to help rescue them. Emergency equipment had a hard time getting to that location due to the damage and so forth to the infrastructure in the area. Rob was a little bit late to work, but we forgave that from that perspective. He had somebody hold over for him, but he was able to pull 3 people and 2 pets out of that house that morning before he got to work. So I wanted to recognize him for that extra effort.
And so speaking of our folks, this is just one of many instances we've had over the years where folks are doing their job off duty for their friends, family, neighbors. I think it just speaks to the dedication they have to their craft for what they're doing. So definitely want to recognize them for that. Next item. Next item we have is we're requesting adoption or approval of our continuity of operations plan. This is a document that we're concentrating on because of the accreditation process. So when we talk about accreditation, obviously there's a number of different components to it. This is one of those where it is a good practice and a practice most modern suburban fire departments, actually all fire departments, should have in place. The process of accreditation has identified it for us and given us the incentive to get it done in a timely fashion. And so it's one of the offshoot benefits. We're not doing it necessarily just because of accreditation, but accreditation and that process of self-reflection and improvement led us to getting it done now. So Chief Dorson is here to answer any specific questions on the plan, maybe describe what it does for us, and then we'll ask the board for adoption of it.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Great.
Good to the dream.
Living the dream. Nightmare's a dream too, remember that. Any questions on the, this is for our nightmares, so.
So question, what does this, what changes after this is adopted and implemented between what you're doing now and what you're saying
It actually,
in the future?
it
Or is this-
formalizes the process.
It just memorializes what you're already doing?
Yeah, and some of the things we've always talked about. Fortunately, we haven't had to implement them, but it puts them in place. If we get in the pool and we all hit the $650 million in the lotto tomorrow, and we all walked out, who would walk in and take over for us? And what would they need to do? You know, would it be Chief Burke stepping up, or is he walking out with a group that's going out with their millions of dollars? You know, just that kind of thing. If we were to have a fire station burn down, what do we need to do to restore services in that area? What's the process? Or we go out and we have a hazmat incident that destroys, 100 sets of turnout gear. How do we replace that? How do we cover those operations and things like that? Just kind of memorializes that. That's just for us. The tornado is another example. What do we do to sustain operations if we had to deal with the tornado for more than just the 2 days where the fire department was really involved? Think Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans. How did they manage? This allows us to implement plans at an emergency basis. The fire chief can bring it in, and we can do the continuity of operations plan in part or in its entirety, depending on the severity of the incident.
And then how often does something like this get retouched?
It'll be reviewed every year as part of our annual compliance review process. So as we're looking at all of our policies and procedures, we'll review that. And that any time if there were a change within the township, or the fire department, we could review it at that time and update it at that time and bring it back to the board.
And then with Next Gen 911, you've got essentially, there's pieces of this that tie into 911 dispatch. And so obviously you'll adapt that into this when that becomes a reality.
Yes.
So
Is there, I saw the document, couldn't we, since we're adopting it now, couldn't we just put it as a 2024?
Yeah, it's just when it was,
Plan?
we can adjust that. We can even take the date off of it and just do for our revisions. So as far as the title goes, we can just call it the continuity of operations plan, period.
And then we'd have the date that we adopted it.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to do it, is just to strike that year off of it.
Yeah, I hate to adopt something today from something that was last year.
So, yeah, I mean, it's no problem at all with
Okay.
it. So. Part of the plan does address like fuel issues, and there's a list of suggested alternative vendors for that. There are no agreements in place at this time. If this were adopted, then we could work on doing the agreements, and those would have to come back before the board. It'd be like working with the schools, the county, maybe a couple of the private service stations in the area. So if you recall back when 2001, when the trade centers were hit, that was one of the concerns. What are we going to do for fuel if they shut things down? So at that time, we worked with Sunoco, who was our primary vendor, and they said they'd hold so much back, but we had nothing in writing, nothing in place for that prior to that. So, we're just kind of relying on our neighbors to be nice, so to speak.
from a legal perspective, do townships, villages, cities, counties, do they have any ability in a emergency situation essentially to take what we call priority as far as fuel, whether it be for a generator or for a vehicle?
I mean, there's nothing really in place, like statutorily that does that. I mean, I think that, you know, the state government could step in and
Sure.
mandate
You could do
something
it
like
in
that, but there's
order or
nothing
something,
currently
and
in
then
place for
get sued
that.
later. Okay.
Okay.
Board,
make
if
a mo-
inclined, I would just recommend, when you read the motion, remove the year and adopt it as amended.
And this will be implemented now, or you're waiting until you receive the accreditation?
No, this will be in place now once you
Okay.
approve it.
That's also.
I make a motion 2024031-fire-A to adopt the Beavercreek Township Fire Department's continuity of operations plan, COOP, as amended.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Thank you,
The-
Board.
Just a quick question, the sheriff's office, do you have one of does the sheriff's office have one of these in place?
We do, we actually worked on that last year, retired fire administrator, I actually worked on the Beavercreek Township side, the facility, if something happened to move operations down to help. But we do have something in place,
Okay, so it would roll over, yeah, okay.
And I would anticipate to that point, as this matures, obviously the first step is codify what we expect to do now and be able to either hand it off to somebody who needs to come in and be part of the team or use it as a checklist for make sure we don't forget things. I would anticipate two changes as we move forward. One is there will be an additional level of detail as we start thinking through, as Chief Dorset mentioned, okay, we need to get agreements in place to support these particular areas. So we'll be working through that level of detail, but then also looking to coordinate with the other agencies. So Beavercreek City's plan, the Greene County Sheriff's plan, EMA's plan, all of those, and making sure that they're all mutually supporting and not contradictory. So that's part of the long-term goal, and that'll be the evolution of this as we go along. But thank you for your support. Next item, I'm actually going to ask for Chief Merck's help. This is a request to purchase a leadership program. It's leadership mentoring. Chief Dorston found this gentleman, James Rowan, who's a retired fire captain, who has a very fire-centric development program, and it really talks about a lot of the cultural and leadership issues that we've discussed over the past couple of years. And we think it's a great way to develop our people, starting with myself all the way down to all of our officers and our firefighters. Mr. Rowan has come in and hit the ground running. He kind of interviews us as much as we interviewed him, leading up to make sure that we would be an organization that he'd like to work with as much as us working with him. And I think that's gone very well. And I'll have Chief Merck's come up and give you a little more of an explanation and answer any questions you might have.
Good evening, Board. Yes, as Chief Vanderboss said, this is a program that is a year-long program that has an investment across the organization steered towards the officers. In this plan, Mr. Rowan will be interacting with the officers at the senior staff level, command level, and the company officer level on a regular basis, virtually. Holding a lot of sessions with us, getting feedback and coaching us in our growth in the department. It's an impactful program. We've vetted this out, like the chief said. He has interviewed our folks. We've already got some significant feedback, and we have some work ahead of us. I feel personally that this is the one program I think is going to hopefully push us over the edge to make some improvement. We've been dealing with this for a while, as you know, with some different issues that we've had, and I think it's a great way for us to grow and make our department better. There is, in this program, the ability, or Mr. Rowan will be coming out and actually coming on site and meeting with the crews. And then in this request. There's also the opportunity that he could come out again if it's needed, so that's the secondary. But the basis of the program is one site visit where he will visit all the crews and then spend quite a bit of time with senior staff and the company officers.
On the purchase request, so on the 12,000, is this paid in 12 installments over the 12-month period, or is it paid in advance?
Right now,
its entirety?
what I understand is it's paid in advance.
And what happens in the event, just from a contract standpoint, if he's unable or unwilling to complete the process?
Well, that is something that we can definitely address. That hasn't been discussed.
Just something to maybe put in, make sure from a contract standpoint that, not that you're trying to look for an exit clause for the township, but in the event that he's unable or unwilling, if you paid in advance and 2 months in, he's unable, I assume it's a one-person show, based on the way
He
you described it.
does have a small staff.
As far as the teacher.
Yeah, that is correct. He
Or the
is
consultants,
the
we'll call it.
program in that
Okay.
regard.
So this might be something you put into
Good
that
point.
or include in that, just so if we're paying in advance, I understand why it's a retainer of sorts. But in the event that either non-performance or unwilling to perform, that there's an exit strategy for the township. Otherwise, I assume you've already vetted that the team is on board with it.
Yes, I mean, he's impactful, and he's a straight shooter, and even with that, he's ruffled some feathers, but across the board at all the different stakeholder levels, everybody is still on board with this and think it's the right thing we need to do. So, yes.
Good.
Well, we need to do something, so.
As long as you have buy-in.
Yep, there's, at this point, and that hasn't changed. I mean, it's varied a little bit, but no, it's still, everybody's on board.
Do we sign a contract? Is there a contract involved?
He did not require a contract.
Okay.
Just trying to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, we should have something.
Yeah, some document of some,
And Ms. Frick and I will address that.
Okay.
because if he has a heart attack or something.
Right.
Or it's that he joins your lottery.
Can I get in on it?
No.
No.
That's fair.
So you understand, just from a standpoint of, just so everybody understands that they're established expectations and manage it from there. Absolutely.
I make a motion to approve purchase request 24-fire-0119 to growyourcaptains.com LLC for the National Company Officers Leadership Academy 12-month program in the amount of $12,000 and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second,
With the understanding that we'll put something in place memorializing what the services are to be provided, the schedule, the time frame of the commitment, and in the event there's unable or unwilling to perform on the consultant's behalf.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I move to approve purchase request 24-fire-0119 to the Huntington for the Holiday Inn Hotel 4-night stay in the amount not to exceed $500 and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve purchase request 24- excuse me, -fire-0119.
Pages.
I know.
Everyone stop coughing.
We'll never get this meeting done.
To, just a blanket for travel expenses for a second visit if needed, and the amount not to exceed $2,000, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, board. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a fairly familiar one for the organization. This is a request for tuition for the Ohio Fire Executive Program for Captain Lee Polis. Captain Polis has applied to and been accepted to the program. It has been our goal. We've tried to keep at least one person in the program, and Captain Harrison, I was about to say graduates this spring, and this would put Captain Polis in the pipeline right behind him. Where the leadership program is much more about culture and leadership attributes, the OFE program is a lot more about the tactile skills in addition to some leadership concepts. So you get a little bit of an overlap there, but he'll also get a lot more hard skills as well in this program. And we continue to believe that this is one of the best programs. Most of our chiefs have been through the program, if not all, except for myself, and then several of our captains. So we continue to believe in it. We'd like to permission to send him to that. It's still a 2-year program, or 2.5 year? 2.5 year program.
Of the 6 that have gone through the program, how many are still with Beavercreek Township?
4
Chief
counties.
Easter, Chief Hawker, Captain Harrison.
And the others retired? Or
Yeah.
Chief Young and
Chief Young was the first one, I remember, and he retired shortly after.
Chief Connors was the first one.
yes.
Chief Connors was first, many, many years ago.
Okay.
He was in class 3.
He was class 1, I was in class 9.
And to that point, we're reaching further down into the organization now to get it so that we do get that longer term investment. He'll be able to use it at the captain, shift commander level, and then as he ideally promotes up through the organization, he'll bring those skills with him.
It was just really more of a point of reference. We had a former trustee that his argument was, if we train them and then they leave, and we argued back, well, what if we don't train them and they stay?
Fair point. I had forgotten. I absolutely remember that conversation now. Yeah, I
Chief
forgot.
Williams is the one that has left and gone somewhere else, and he left in the middle of the program.
Sure.
Yeah. And became a chief, so.
He'll come back
Yeah.
someday. Okay.
I move to approve purchase request 24-fire-0019 to Ohio Fire Chiefs Association for Ohio Fire Executive Program tuition in the amount not to exceed $10,000 and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Thank you, board. And then I'd like to ask Chief Heister to come back up and just give you a brief rundown from our live fire training.
So Ms. Wallace and Mr. Rushing joined us out there for most of the day of fun. Mr. Rushing was there the entire day, and I know we put him through a bit of exercise that day that he was sore the next day, but we were able to
Not much to do that, but I'll digress.
we were able to complete all of our objectives with that training, despite it being a small house. But we did get quite a few evolutions into that small building, and a lot of training to be had there. A lot of our newer folks were given some fire exposure that they don't get very often. But even some of our new instructors were given some time and some interaction with experienced instructors for how to plan and implement a live acquired structure training. So we have 4 students that will be going through that NFPA required class to add on to their instructor certification later this year. And now they've actually got a real live exercise under their belt from the entire planning process all the way through the execution. We're also able to test some of our incident management changes with the new apparatus in service, the new engines. So a couple of nurse tank operations, some new hose loads. We were actually able to go from concept on paper to actual trial without it being an emergency scene, so that we didn't look like we were making a lot of mistakes. So we've added a lot of things there, and we're able to refine some of those pieces. We also had our cadets out. So we had 6 cadets, most of which actually took a job shadow day from high school to come out and work with us. So it was great exposure for them. Obviously, we can't put them into a live fire setting without a certification, but they were able to help load hose, help able to see the evolutions. They spent a lot of time being mentored by our staff, including Garrett Riley, our cadet instructor. So it was great to have them on site as well. So we accomplished quite a bit of our objectives, and even some we didn't plan to. So thank you for the support.
I want to thank all of you for participating, and I thought it was a great exercise. We thank the owners of the building profusely, and I brought them into Mr. Grogan's truck and had him sit, so, because it was pretty chilly out there that day. And they were excited to be able to see what we were doing, and I thought it was great training. And the cadets, they were hefting those hoses, and, I think they had a good time too in the process. And it was kind of weird to see the firefighters at the very end of all the training after 3:00 when they actually lit the building and let it go. And it was standing with the firefighters, and they took them a while to reset their program because they really still wanted to go in and put the fire out. And they were, having to pull themselves back and not put the fire out and watch the place burn. And then they even tested it, because they had knew what they was supposed to do, and then they were testing, okay, this beam is going to fall in this way, this one's going to do this. And they were telling the kids, the cadets, hey, this is what it's supposed to do, this chimney's going to do this wall's going to do this, and watching it happen as they were projecting it to be. I thought it was a fantastic experience. I want to thank all of you in that did it. I thought it was a great job by
Pass it
all.
along to staff.
Thank you.
And probably just worth mentioning again, Major Hitters provided restroom and parking, if I recall correctly, and the auxiliary fed everybody, and I'm sure knowing them, they fed everybody well, so we appreciate their continued support. I think they enjoy it, the exercises almost as much as we do, so it's great to have them out as well. I think all that's remaining is our monthly updates. This is just our summary. I don't think I know the percentage did not get recalculated. I apologize, I missed that. But this is just our remuneration of the shifts off. We're working to get those filled as quickly as possible, get folks back to work. Our probationary firefighters continue to do well. Chief Merckx, Chief Easter continue to reach out to them on a monthly basis and have at least one face-to-face conversation each to ensure there's no issues similar to what we've had in the past. Lieutenant Smith is doing well in his new position and is excited to be there. And we're working with Mrs. Zink to update our hiring process to get those positions filled, like I mentioned. We're very excited. We hope to have 5 on board here in the next couple weeks, and then we'll have another 1 or 2 shortly after that we're just too far out to bring in this group, but we're prepared to bring them in a smaller group. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, or more likely defer it to somebody else who can answer better than I can.
I had a math question. And so on your number 6 February activity report, this is just for future education to make sure I'm interpreting this report correctly. So for this period, so starting with 107 shifts back to April of 2023 through November, you essentially have 5 firefighters off for one condition or another, or this is saying that it could be the same firefighter. You have
So
one at
the
100,
top line there,
107
the
shifts.
firefighter's been off for 107 shifts with a work-related injury. That is the same person. So each
For the
line
whole
represents a
107.
different individual.
So, okay, so it's 5 individuals. It's not that one came off and went back on.
Correct.
I'll speak to how I normally have it, and correct me if you did it just a little bit different, because Chief Easter did this part for me while I was out. It is literally every firefighter who's currently off and then how far back they went off.
So the 107 is still off.
Correct.
Yes,
And once they
35
come back
is
to work, the next month they'll drop off of this list for you.
Okay, but then if they went back off duty 2 weeks later, they'd be started over on the clock?
Correct.
Okay.
But it would start out 1 shift off. It wouldn't be 108
Understand.
shifts. That's correct.
Yeah, okay. It was more, like I said, it was a math question, so.
And I'll tell you, I used a spreadsheet to simplify it for me a little bit. It could be plus or minus 1 shift depending on how Excel rounds it, so.
But it's that number of people is what I was.
That is correct, yes.
As opposed to, so you've had vacant positions and you've had essentially work-related or non-work-related.
That is correct.
Reasons why people aren't there. So if you have 5 people on work-related or non-work-related plus 5 vacancies, you're down 10 people.
That is correct.
So as an example, last month had an officer who was at the top of that list. That officer was retired and now became our vacant staffing position that's been vacant for 11 shifts.
Sure.
And then a resignation
trying to make sure everybody understood, or at least I did.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a couple things. Want to thank everyone that was involved in the CERT training this weekend. Took a lot of time out of the weekend, and it was a good,
Chief Dorston, I believe Chief Hawker, correct?
Right.
Were
and
instructors. Were you there?
Mr. Zaharias was there.
And the-
Asked me to teach.
Yeah. So I took a lot of
There's
time
not
out of the
many
weekend.
townships that have a fiscal officer teach CERT classes.
Yeah.
We're very grateful.
But it's dedication, and I want to thank and appreciate those people that were involved. And then, Chief, I would like to, even though the auxiliary brought food at the fire training and also for the CERT training, I would like to have your office send out a thank you note to Roosters, in addition to the auxiliary sending thank
I
you.
believe Michelle's already working on one.
Great,
Yep.
because it's major when they provide all the food for all of our firefighters.
Absolutely.
That's a big donation, so
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to have it come not only from auxiliary, but from our department.
Yes, ma'am. We'll take
Thank
care
you.
of that.
That's all I have.
Thank you, board. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, board. That's all I have this evening.
Okay, Ms. Frick?
Yes, I wanted to address an email from the county engineer about some stormwater requirements with respect to incorporating that into the zoning. I think our township already does a good job that's probably not something that's specifically an issue for us for a number of reasons. One, when it goes to regional planning before it even comes before the zoning commission, that's somewhere where the engineer's office or the stormwater, they're gonna be put on notice of a new plan coming forward. But in addition, whenever we have a plan come through, a number of years ago, I think, we have put on each of the approvals a condition typically that final approvals are subject to approval by any agency or entity with review authority. It also has final approval is subject to the approval of the Greene County Regional Planning and Coordinating Commission, and the site plans final engineering shall meet all of Greene County subdivision regulations, which I believe within that process, that's when the engineer and stormwater management also take a look at those. So they're involved in the process throughout it, and we leave some flexibility for that to happen, and that our zoning approval is not final until that happens. So I think from our perspective as a township, I think we're keeping them in the loop, and I don't know that it's necessarily an issue for Beavercreek Township.
Right, and my concern was, number one, so the county engineer essentially serves as the township's engineer.
Yes.
And so the concern I had was stipulating the order of things for the township, as far as when things, that you should go to regional planning or such for approvals prior to going through the township process. And I think as long as, this sounded as like a policy, and my question was, when I look at this, when it gets into defining it down to how many acres it is, a permit is required before the township would issue its zoning. Well, no, our zoning should be conditional upon the applicant getting the permit, which is how we do it now, but that's not what this says. This says, therefore, for construction activities disturbing one or more acres of total land, or will disturb less than 1 acre of land in an unincorporated jurisdiction, but are part of a larger common plan of development or sale, that will ultimately disturb 1 or more acres, Greene County stormwater permit is required. And so I think we understand that, but my understanding was, what the engineer was pushing for, was that permit be procured prior to the township approving the zoning.
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying is technically, we do that already by virtue of saying.
We approve it subject to the applicant, essentially seeking the approval from all other governmental entities that essentially have jurisdiction over that property.
Right.
But that's not what she's saying. She's saying, get the permit and then go through your site plan approval.
See, I didn't quite read it that way. I think I read it as she was saying, have them start that process, because for the stormwater permit, the notice of intent, start that process. I mean, because technically we don't issue a permit for a site plan. And any permits we would issue wouldn't typically be more than 1 acre. But I read it more that she was sort of saying, okay, this is going to have to happen. So at the beginning of the process, will you let the applicants know they need to get started with us as well? Which I think typically we would, when we meet with an applicant, as I understand it, we kind of talk through, okay, these are the various steps when we have the pre-zoning meeting or pre-site development meeting. We're telling them these are all the different entities and agencies that you're going to have to deal with as part of this process.
Okay, if you interpret it as an awareness item, then that's different. I and others interpreted it as that she wanted that in place prior to the township approving the zoning, so that it would be kind of like a fence around the pool type thing.
So I think going back then, if that's the case, if that's her intent, I don't think she can dictate that to us, because ultimately the dirt isn't going to be moved until it gets to her at some point anyways, through the subdivision approval process. And it does go, by statute, it does go to regional planning first
the
before
landowner
we
can
do.
actually cut the trees down and move the dirt before it's
Well, that's true. Yeah.
So that's
But they could do that before they even come
correct. That's my point.
for a zoning permit.
Yeah. If you would just maybe double check and look at if there was stipulating an order of events or just making it an awareness item, because if it's an awareness item, it's appreciated. If it's making it, if she's reshuffling the order of how things should occur, it doesn't matter. There's no reason to go get your permit if the township's going to deny it.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, I can even follow up with the engineer's office to determine
That
exactly
was my
what it
concern.
was.
So is that others interpreted it the same way.
Okay,
So other trustees interpret it the same way.
okay,
Not here, but that are part of regional planning.
okay. Okay, yeah, I could clarify that.
Okay, fiscal officer.
Thank you, Board. I have 3 items for you tonight. The first in front of you is a resolution to transfer funds from the general fund to the capital improvement fund. As we've done in the past, evaluate the township's carryover in the general fund and establish an amount. And we are recommending $500,000 to be transferred into the capital improvement fund. You can pass the resolution as presented.
Mr. Zahari, what are the restrictions on what those funds can be used for?
In regards to the capital improvement fund, so by resolution, it's any public infrastructure improvements within the township.
Okay.
Unincorporated area, although we do fund joint projects with the city of Beavercreek, so this, there'll be an obligation starting in, Mr. Rushing will have to correct me if I'm wrong, in 2025 for the modifications for Dayton, Xenia, and Beaver Valley.
It could be used as a contribution towards a match.
It can be used towards grant funds, yep. Yep.
Can it be donated to like the wetlands or not?
No, not for the
Okay.
capital
So
improvement.
even if there was, they were seeking support from the township, financial support from the township for an infrastructure improvement in one of the wetlands, it would not be used for
Yeah,
that.
this is public infrastructure. So paving, it could go towards paving,
Okay.
road construction.
Land acquisition.
Sidewalks, land acquisition, right-of-way acquisition. Those are things, and like you mentioned, Mr. Kratz, it can be used as much like the project at Dayton, Xenia, and Beaver Valley. We're receiving funds from Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, so there'll be obligations paid out of this fund to match our local match.
Is there a time limit on how long the money can remain in the fund?
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Since the establishment of the capital improvement fund. The board at any time, this is one of the unique funds in which the board has the ability to rescind any monies from the capital improvement fund to the fund of origination. So within that 10-year time span, if, for example, we got in a bad predicament where we needed more funds in the general fund. Ohio Revised Code specifically authorized the Board of Township Trustees to move the monies back from the capital improvement fund to where it came from, which is very unique because transfers in any other circumstance are a permanent movement of money. This is not. It does allow that in the state statute.
Yeah, most of our special funds that are established by resolution are 10 years by statute.
So what is our current balance in that fund? Roughly.
I'll look it up while you guys press the motion.
Meaning we're not funding it for the first time, we have funds.
No,
sitting
this
there.
would be the.
Correct.
And so is the 10-year, is that sunset on the origination of the fund or on the?
Correct, the origination of the fund.
It's not on the anniversary of this 500.
That's correct.
Okay.
And you can, we'll pass so let's say we're at year 9.5, you can pass a resolution extending it and just renewing it to keep it open. Which we have done in the past with other special.
Without this transfer, there's $1,042,665. Should be just over 1.5 million after this transfer.
The reason I was asking is if you need to ladder the funds, if you can have more than one fund account for this capital improvement, like if you could have one for 2024, one for 2025, and that way you get 10 years on each block of money.
Be more of an accounting.
Yeah. If you can just extend it, it's not an issue.
Yeah, you can extend, it's fine. And we've done that with fire, some of the, and a couple of the funds we're gonna be talking in the next resolution. We have to do that as well every 10 years.
I was just trying to think of something else to add to your calendar.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a resolution in front of us.
We passed as presented.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2024-0311-FIN-A, a resolution to transfer from general fund to capital improvement fund as presented.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is transfer of funds from the fire fund to our accumulated leave fund for our fire department. This is an obligation to ensure that firefighters, that any fire personnel that is eligible to retire, that we have funds set aside to pay their accumulated leave balance. So we're recommending transferring $200,000 into that, from fire fund to that account. It can be passed as presented.
Make a motion, resolution number 202-40311-FIN-B, to transfer from Fire Fund 2192 to Paying Accumulated Leave Fund 2903, as presented.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
The last item is to transfer funds from the fire fund to the new ambulance fund to put money into the ambulance fund to purchase a medic unit. And you can be passed as presented.
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 2024-0311-FIN-C, a resolution to transfer from the fire fund to the new ambulance fund as presented.
Second,
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. That's all I have.
Okay, move on to trustee time, so MVRPC.
We had our elections last week. As announced, I was elected as first vice president. Joanne Garcia was elected a representative as the city of Beavercreek's executive board. And they announced as everyone has here, the April 18th, 2024, April Spring Dinner. And we amended the bylaws to include the RTPO, the regional I forget the letters, I don't have it in front of me. Anyway, and they elected a person to represent that entity also. So the MVRPC is getting larger and has more people that are being represented. And that's all I have.
Thank you. TAC, the opioid regional task force.
RFPs were sent out last week for anyone that wants to submit plans for any drug rehab or facilities or planning processes or anything. So they'll be in process until May. And we have a meeting next week. So
Regional planning, nothing to report. Health department.
Meeting was last Thursday, but there was no quorum, so it was rescheduled. They did have a presentation on mosquitoes, which if you want to know anything about mosquitoes, let me know. I can tell you about them. The district advisory council is on 3/19, and they rescheduled the health department meeting for the 18th.
School superintendent, city manager, administrator meeting.
Yes, board, I met with the city manager, primarily discussing the racetrack, fuel station off of 35 on Factory. Planning Commission for the city did meet last Wednesday and voted to recommend the zoning for the fueling station to not allow any semi-truck filling canopy. So that is the recommendation of the Planning Commission being brought forth to City Council. As a reminder, the Factory Road is the township road.
Mr. Rushing, out of curiosity, purely from the filling canopy versus overnight parking facilities, why wouldn't they allow, what was the reason for not allowing filling of semis?
They have within their zoning a definition for semi-truck filling stations, and according to their own definition, which by home rule city they can define, their definition includes zoning only for industrial use, and that parcel there is only for business use. So primarily, one would assume that potentially the public outcry is convincing some individuals to make their decisions, and they're relying upon their definition of filling station to be what they're voting against, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I wonder if the same residents know that the city approved light industrial warehousing on the Arnold property, which is just on the north side of South Alphabet. Because that's a 50,000 square foot warehousing property that there'll be semis going to. I mean, there's also a 50,000 square foot storage facility next to that.
Right.
So with the cut-through road to come down from Alphabet to Factory.
Yeah, primarily they did not want any semi-traffic on Shakertown. That was their Achilles heel, so to speak.
Yeah. It'll be interesting.
It will be.
50,000 square foot warehouse right there. Okay.
They're gonna want some
Yeah.
filling.
Okay. The Wright-Patterson Air Force Restoration Advisory.
Yes, board, I sent out over the weekend the minutes of the meeting, as well as the presentation and the list of the new board members and the board members that were reelected. And Greene County Water Wastewater Committee, I'm not getting notified, so I don't know if these meetings are still going on. Does anybody know? No?
I haven't seen one in a while.
Okay.
I thought Mark mentioned about trying to get one together.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Township Association.
there's a meeting tomorrow night at Greene County Engineers. And Ms. Graff is going to be the host. And you should have RSVP'd.
Investment oversight. I had nothing to report. Unless you had something to report.
Yes, we have another individual that's interested in providing a presentation on doing investments for the township, so that is, we received one earlier this year, so.
This is the same individual?
No, this is separate.
Second.
So,
Okay.
so what I would recommend is that we do have a meeting, no later than April to look at that. We are gonna probably see the feds are gonna look at interest rate changes. That's typically gonna happen in May. So I would say we hear presentations from our current and the two that are, wanting to propose an investment portfolio for the township.
911 Advisory Committee, we had a presentation already on that, so there's nothing more to add. At this time, unless there's anything else to come before the board. Entertain a motion to go into executive session under Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G1, to consider the appointment, employment, and compensation of a public official and employee.
So moved?
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, not St. Patrick's Day.
You're even wearing the right. To exit executive session and reconvene the regular meeting, please.
So moved.
Second?
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to enter into acknowledgement and overpayment and agreement to repay and authorize administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Thank you, board. That's all I have.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Do you want these documents back?
Yes, please.